Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom, that's Jeff. And Jeff, this was 28 iterations of Chris Jericho ago. This is the WCW Cruiserweight edition of Chris Jericho that we're going to cover. And I don't know, man. I'm pumped to cover this one. It's fall Brawl, so there were war games, so there's two rings. I don't know if they're going to use both rings or not. We're kicking off the show with a cruiserweight match, so should be a lot of action in this one, and two of the better in-ring performers of all time going at it. I'm looking forward to this one. Where did you come up with it?
Yeah, you told me, or you already said, like, this match kind of kicked off the show. I could have told you that without even looking at the card on this one. And so, late 1997, WCW, the Cruisers are opening, and the, spoiler, the NWO is closing this one. Yeah. So, this was one, just kind of the timing on this. I wanted us to cover this kind of when it was happening. I've had it on the list for a while here. It's mid-September. We're early September at this point. We're coming off a loaded weekend. We had, a few premium live event pay-per-views this last weekend. And so just wanted to kind of do something a little different. This was one of those not a big, we're kind of wedged in between some different WWE shows they're doing. I know Bad Blood is the next one in kind of early October. And so just we have something a little different, some matches we haven't covered in a while. And so, or covered ever, but just some different shows that maybe we don't talk about too much, and kind of wedge some different things in here. And so, when I saw like Jericho and Eddie Guerrero, I was like, what can go wrong? It's got to be some good stuff here. And so we'll check it out and see what we think.
Love it. Let's jump into the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
Fall Brawl, 1997. We're in the bustling metropolis of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. WCW had their hotbed in the South, but it's like, and I know they obviously went to different venues around the country, but I feel like they probably could have done I feel like they were lazy when it came to venues and booking buildings. And I feel like they could have had a more widespread reach of their live shows, and probably could have worked different types of venues. So September 14th, 1997, we're right, as you said, in the height of the NWO stuff. So the main event's going to have a heavy NWO influence. But we start out with this cruiserweight match. Mm-hmm. Then we go to the Steiners defeating Harlem Heat in 11 minutes. Alex Wright's going to retain his television title against Ultimo Dragon in 18 minutes. Jeff Jarrett's going to defeat Dean Malenko in 14 minutes. Wrath and Mortis are going to defeat the Faces of Fear in 12 minutes. The Giant's going to defeat Scott Norton in 5 minutes. DDP and Lex Luger are going to defeat Randy Savage and Scott Hall in a 10-minute no DQ match. And then our main event, the NWO, comprised of Buff Bagwell, Kevin Nash, Conan, and Syxx, is going to defeat the Four Horsemen team of Benoit, Hennig, Flair, and Steve McMichael in a 20-minute War Games match. NWO, and no offense to these guys, but Bagwell, Conan, and Syxx, it's just, it just got so watered down. And I don't know.
At this point, bad.
It's 2020 hindsight, but it's like, man, I don't know. And I know different era, 2020 hindsight, but it's like, you look at what's going on. The Bloodline is being booked, that whole storyline. Everything that the NWO should have been, but wasn't, if you really think about it.
As we're sitting here, I'm trying to pull up the here we go, the members in 1997 to kind of see where we were at this point. And so it just yeah, that was Savage, Norton, Bagwell, Bischoff, Elizabeth, Vincent, as we all, let's see here, six. Yeah, it's just crazy. Okay.
Yeah, brutal.
Um, yeah,
But again, I mean, and no offense to Virgil, but it's like, imagine like a Virgil character being in the bloodline. You'd be like, well, that's so stupid and lame and waters it down.
yeah, right, exactly. Like, and to put this, I do have a lot of respect for Conan, especially after the death of WCW. I think that he's super smart. And Nash, if he would just take a little ownership, maybe. But
not going to happen.
Right, exactly. And so, well, it says they took out the Four Horsemen. It was not the Four Horsemen at all. So maybe Flair, but of course, yeah. Overall, it wasn't a bad card, but this one, Guerrero, kind of, as we all know, like it's the opening cruiserweight of a WCW show. Like that's just kind of how it goes. And so, while this Fall Brawl, like I said, taking place mid-September, we get into it was actually him. We talked a little bit more about Scott Norton. It was Clash of Champions 34. That was when Guerrero had the U.S. Heavyweight Championship, defended it against Scott Norton at that Clash of Champions. There was a sold-out ladder match against Six. And then, of course, these guys, Jericho and Guerrero, actually had a match at Super Brawl 7 that took place in February of 1997. So a little bit of history with these guys kind of getting into this one. And so it was good. And so Guerrero actually losing the belt at Uncensored. It was Dean Malenko who beat him for the title. And then again, Jericho had the cruiserweight belt. So the two of them started feuding for quite a bit. So this was, they had a few matches at this point. So he actually challenged Jericho's Clash of Champions 35, that one taking place in August. Guerrero losing that one, Guerrero demanding a rematch. And that's why we end up in this Fall Brawl match. And so like they go back a little ways on this one. And so whether it was the US title, the cruiserweight title at this point, like these guys had, they were the cruisers, they were going to have match. It was a limited pool WCW. That's how they were treating them. They just kind of throw them in to have these matches. And so at Jericho, though, it was actually just in June that he won the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. It was a Saturday Nitro live event in LA, beating Six for that one. And so that was actually his first championship of his WCW career. And so he beat Ultimo Dragon at Bash at the Beach. He ended up losing the title actually on Monday Nitro to Alex Wright just about 2 weeks about a month and a half before this show taking place. And then was unsuccessful at Road Wild of that year, but then beating him or Alex Wright again in the lead up to this in August. And so he didn't have it for about 2 weeks, lost it, like I said, about 45 days before, won it back 2 weeks later. And so had the belt at this point. And so, and it said they kind of reignited their feud is probably a better way to look at it, or kind of started having a few more matches for bigger belts at this point. And so, after that Clash of Champions. And so just kind of, they were the cruisers. They were going to have matches together. There wasn't a ton of like true build to these guys having a match for the belt or for the Cruiserweight Championship. But, they had been having matches. It's Eddie Guerrero and Jericho. They were some of the better ones out there. And so that's how we get to this one. Just kind of, really a rematch of a couple different matches, but that's how we're here.
Good. Very, very helpful. Man, it's just it gets talked about, but the cruiserweights were so interesting and so well booked and so different. And I'm not even suggesting that it's something that should be done now, because now I just feel like the athleticism of all the performers is so good. But in this era where there wasn't a lot of great wrestling, WCW in particular, I mean, the matches just weren't good. the main event matches. So like this was so good for that era. So anyways, let's jump into this one. We are at the 5-minute mark of Fall Brawl 1997, season 5, episode 1. Fall Brawl 1997, 5-minute mark. Jeff, are you ready?
Let's do this.
All right. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
Dragon for the TV title this weekend, in addition to the War Games Spectacular later on tonight.
Hot crowd.
Other matches that feature
Hot crowd. Oh my gosh.
Versus the NWO, as Guerrero cannot stand the taunts of the crowd here. We have one.
Is that Dominic Mysterio? Jesus.
Jericho's your baby face. Eddie looking like Dom looks now. Man, a lot. You're not kidding.
I texted you after, especially after the Liv Morgan type stuff. I texted you and I was like, I get that there was a custody match and I get that Ray is his dad, but if you were to put a photo of those two guys up next to each other to someone that doesn't watch wrestling and ask who is this man's father, like every single one of them is picking Eddie Guerrero. Like that. Obviously, that's the look he's going for. And man, is it working out for him? Like just crazy. So, but good stuff overall.
So you watched Who Killed WCW?
Yes.
So who killed WCW?
I think it was after watching that, I think that the true answer is it was a bunch of after Ted Turner wasn't there anymore. It was a bunch of high up executives that didn't give a shit about wrestling, that were in pissing matches with each other, that hated Eric Bischoff too, that just wanted no fucking part of it, wanted to put no money into it, didn't want to do anything with it, and just kind of let it die on the vine. I think more and more it was not, while Bischoff was there and I'm sure he played a little bit of it, like I don't think maybe like 1% of what he did. I think that like so much of it, like, yeah, they were booking guaranteed contracts. They had all this money, like, watching a few years or whatever happens to AEW and all the guaranteed money they're throwing on a bloated roster. I think that, it had to be the execs, and I do question. I always appreciate where they did ask the question in that last episode of like there was a little bit of smoke, maybe not fire, with the fire sale of WCW to WWF. Like some of those connections, I don't think I was aware of just like some of the Vince stuff and like kind of who was connected to who at that point. And so that's a separate issue of the fire sale of getting that. But I think that, it was a lot of pissing contests and dick measuring between a whole lot of execs that didn't care about the people or what was, the product on TV. Yep.
Bingo. I actually, and there's a lot of theories out there. So you and I are in complete alignment. And I didn't know what you were going to say. Yep. But there's a lot of people that would tell you it's Bischoff. I mean, Booker T said that. People would tell you that it's, all kinds of different things. I agree with you. I think the suits at Turner absolutely killed WCW because it really was a weird situation. So like WWF, WWE, they're a company. Mm-hmm. And there's a CEO, founder, owner, Vince McMahon, and he did whatever he wanted to do. And within that company, you had revenue and you had expenses. You had a television deal, right? Yep. You could control those things. You had talent contracts that were in the vein of what Vince McMahon wanted them to be, which was basically highly commissionable based on performance and based on revenue generation and dates worked, as opposed to a corporate salary. All right. Yep. So Vince had Vince's business model aligned with what professional wrestling is. Right? Which is, let's see what the pay-per-view. I mean, it's tough to tell guys, hey, we're going to pay you this, pay you that, when you just don't know what the pay-per-views are going to be, what the box offices are going to be. Completely different business model now because most of their revenue is already generated. through Peacock, through USA, Fox, whatever it might be. So a much different business that they were in. So WWF ran their business. WCW was a business unit inside a television company. So when people say, oh, WCW made money or lost money, not really, because like WCW didn't have a legal team. They had Turner. Talent contracts, some were inside the WCW business unit, some were with Turner. Turner did not pay WCW television rights, which is how wrestling companies make money off their content. You know, there were so many goofy things happening that WCW was not run like a real business. And then, of course, the AOL stuff just made the money even more convoluted. So WCW, you really don't know what it was worth, what money it made, how valuable it was. You just will never know because you don't have an accurate accounting of what the business was or wasn't. So who knows how much it made or didn't make. But the whole idea of, oh, WCW is losing so much money at the end, I actually don't buy that because they weren't receiving a TV contract. So what was Nitro and Thunder worth in $1999? Say it was worth $100 million. Well, you're not collecting that $100 million because Turner and AOL aren't giving it to you. So of course you're losing money. So I don't think the business was as bad as people say it was. And if you say, oh, it was bad, well, they had good crowds. They had more people in attendance every single week than AEW did. They had more people buying their pay-per-views than AEW did. You understand that, like, 1999 WCW, oh, what a joke it was. Oh, how pathetic it was. How bad it was. Blah, blah, blah. More fans attending than AEW. More people watching every week than AEW. More people buying the pay-per-views every week than AEW. So if you think AEW is a successful company with a bright future, then how do you look at WCW and say in 1999 and in 2000, it was a complete disaster? The booking sucked, but the company really wasn't that bad. So how do you take this product, this brand that has people buying the pay-per-views, it has people attending live, merchandise being sold, how does that just vanish? What vanishes because of Suits? They weren't in the wrestling business. They shouldn't have been in the wrestling business. They should have sold that business unit for $60 million when they could have and kept it on air. So the Suits absolutely killed the company. And I stand firm when I say, as bad as the booking was, it was not a bad company even at the very end, which is why Eric Bischoff had investors willing to pay $60 million for it.
Yep. Yeah. And it really, I felt like it was pulled out from the rug was really pulled out from under the rug on him on some of that. So, good match so far. These guys, they are staying in the ring for the most part here, but a lot of good action. It's not really looking as much like a cruiserweight match. They're working a little stiff too, which has been good so far. So, talking about, we can, AEW and WWE and premium live events and pay-per-view. I sent you it's a good transition to talk about. I sent you a graphic.
Hey, real quick, before we change subject, just I think this is interesting. So I looked it up, like not 1999 WCW, right? Like it's a joke. It sucks. Yeah. Okay. Here are the pay-per-view buys. Sold out 99, 330,000. The top AEW pay-per-view hasn't done half of that. Okay? Fall Brawl 99, 485. Uncensored, 325. That's the same month as WrestleMania. 255 for Spring Stampede. 195 Slamboree. 185 Great American Bash. 175 Bash at the Beach. Road Wild, 235. So the first 8 pay-per-views of the year for WCW, which, sucked and was horrible apparently, all did way more than AEW's ever done. Fall Brawl, 99, 130. So that's like an AEW show. 230 for Halloween Havoc, 200 for Mayhem, 145 for Starrcade. So every WCW pay-per-view in 1999 did more than any AEW pay-per-view ever.
Yeah.
Now 2000 sucked.
Right. Yeah.
2000 plummeted. Now we're in the 60 to 145 range. But you get the idea, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, we can't count that last year, but yeah.
No, but I'm just saying that's how good in 99, that's how popular it still was. So to say that, oh, it was bleeding money and it was terrible, it wasn't.
Well, and we look at like after, even.
Oh man, I love that submission move, by the way.
That's
it's
a
like,
great move. Yeah.
like a surfboard type thing, but now he's got him in a reverse headlock.
They're doing
Brutal.
a lot of submission holds. Yeah, this is kind of crazy.
It.
Yeah, to kind of see him slow it down a little bit, even as crew, wonder if they, because they took a long time with this match. I wonder if they just kind of went over time. Yeah. So talking about the money we're spending on wrestling, whether it's hot or not, I thought it was interesting because I sent you a graphic that said if you were to do, it was to watch every NFL game this year. So everyone for 5 months, you would need YouTube TV, Peacock, Prime, Netflix, ESPN Plus, and NFL Plus. So to watch every one, and that's only 5 months, you're paying $670, $135 a month to watch every NFL game. So when we start, I know you and we've been talking a lot about like value on some of this stuff, and like AEW, like we're just not spending the money on those shows. Like you and I aren't. I think that we're coming up on the kind of TV deals, and that's happening, and so they're trying to load up kind of what happens on the weekly show. I think that we're getting that was a big argument there for a little bit, was we were getting pay-per-view level matches on like the Wednesday show. And it is because, the TV deals were such a big part of it. I think until they get a true streaming deal, like it's just not like they need that. They have to have that in order for them to kind of lock in. I think even if I've been reading more and more rumors of more UFC integration into WWE, we're going to start to see more crossover with wrestlers being at ringside or vice versa, and UFC being type ringside. I saw there were some movies and stuff where wrestlers were walking the red carpet and stuff. And so as we're talking about value on some of this stuff, like what is, take the two big ones, take AEW and WWE, like how is WWE, how are each of them providing value to your kind of life and experience, and so that you're not wasting your money? So like, is 100 or 670 or $135 a month for football worth it versus the $9.99 we're paying for wrestling every month? Like what do you stand on some of this?
So, you and I were fortunate. We make nice livings. I look at the AEW stuff and I feel like I can't afford to watch every AEW pay-per-view. Yeah. I mean that. I can't justify. I mean, if you bought every pay-per-view, what are we talking? Like, are they $60 each?
50 to 60, yeah, depending.
Okay,
on,
so say how many? 10 of them?
14. Yeah, probably 8 to 10, and you're getting 10 to 14 matches on a card.
Okay, so if I'm buying all the AEW shows, I'm into it for $600 a year. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, if you're doing that and you're spending the money, God bless you. That there's nothing wrong with that. I can't justify that. I think that's absurd. The NFL, look, I already have ESPN Plus. I already, NFL, but I'm committed to a couple $100 a year on the NFL. I buy the package. I'm okay buying the package because it's 6 hours of entertainment. Most weekends out of the year I'm home for. I got young kids, so like what else am I doing? So it's easy for me to say, look, 6 hours, 10 to 15 weekends out of the year. Sure. I don't mind spending a couple $100. I mean, you could, go watch a couple games at a bar and probably spend that on food and booze. So I'm cool. I'm cool with that. And Sundays I watch football, and sometimes people are over or we have family over or whatever. I don't mind that. I just think the AEW value proposition, and I've said this before, Jeff. So what happens is, okay, I'm not going to spend $600 on AEW pay-per-views. Well, then why am I watching the TV show? That's the problem in my mind, is like, so wait, so I'm going to watch 2 hours on Wednesdays, an hour on Fridays, 2 hours on Saturday, but then I'm not going to buy the pay-per-view. So I'm just not going to watch the shows. So I think the TV ratings suffer because people can't afford or don't see the value in buying the pay-per-views. So I believe if they had a streaming pay-per-view model, if they were on Max or Amazon or wherever they could find it, they would have more people watch the TV show, which means, Jeff, what would happen? The TV deal is worth more money, so they can command a higher rights fee. And oh, by the way, if more people are watching your weekly show and engaged in your product, then you wouldn't have to tarp off 80% of the building. More people would go live. So WWE's exploded in growth. Why? Well, you're on network TV. You put a ton of content on YouTube. You don't charge for your pay-per-views anymore. They've just flooded the market with it so that the casual viewer tunes in and watches and is more likely to take their kid to a show, which drives up ticket prices. It all feeds together. And AEW is doing so many things wrong. The other thing that I'll tie in with this is AEW does way too much inside baseball. There is shit that they put on their television of MJF saying a line to Will Ospreay. Jeff, I have a wrestling podcast. I've been watching this shit for 40 years, okay, my entire life. You and I talk about wrestling almost every day. I have a Twitter account dedicated to wrestling. I have no idea what the inside baseball is. I have no idea what he's talking about. So if I don't understand that, how many people out there get it? They don't get it, which means I mean, you watch these AEW shows and you're like, you would have to be on wrestling Twitter all day, read The Observer, watch every single week of AEW television, watch CMLL, watch New Japan, and then maybe you'd know what in the hell was going on.
Yep.
Okay, that's the problem. I watch people watch wrestling and stuff like wrestling because they want to feel connected.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Okay, Eddie wins.
And that ends the 1 month title reign of Chris Jericho.
1 month title reign comes to an end. Hits him with a beautiful frog splash. Just an awesome ending to that.
And the crowd goes silent for it.
Eddie Guerrero.
They don't like the heel.
To wrestle tonight and took the cruiserweight belt right away from the champ.
All right, so good match, but I want to finish this and I want your thoughts on this. So again, it's like, where genres like wrestling succeed is when they're incredibly inclusive. And what I mean by that is like you feel like you're part of the product. You feel like you're in a community or a fan base. You feel invested in the Bloodline storyline. You feel invested in Cody Rhodes because you watched his old man wrestle and you know his story and you saw him go to the independents. Okay. That's what works in wrestling. When I watch AEW, and I know I'm not alone here, I feel like I'm not part of it. I'm like, Tony Khan, I actually don't like him. I don't like him as a person. I don't connect with him. I don't resonate with him. I don't follow what the Young Bucks are talking about. It's like you're being a character, but you're bringing in real life, and I don't understand this. I feel Punk got railroaded, so I feel like you screwed one of my guys over. AEW is just very hard for a fan to engage in. So I think for all of that, $60 for a pay-per-view, inside baseball, too much television. I just think it's a very hard property to become engaged in. What do you think?
Yeah, to put a quick bow on it, I think there are some parts of it that aren't bad. But for the most part, I'm watching it online. And so whatever they are like the clips and stuff. So if they don't give it to me there, I'm not following it. Like playing and stuff. And I read more of the behind the scenes stuff than anything than kind of what's going on. And so I don't know. It's hard. We're just not AEW fans. I think that's part of what a lot of this boils down to. Of like,
I feel like they've made it incredibly hard to be a fan of their product.
Yeah. Yeah. I like and to get on board with everybody. It's just hard. Like, and the week to week kind of storytelling, like, they're shooting from the hip, and that's what it really boils down to, which is hard. Which
is what Vince McMahon did for many, many years, and his product and ratings suffered from it.
Yep.
And now they tell long-term storylines, and guess what? The shit's way more popular than
everybody's hooked. Yep, absolutely. So,
all right, let's get into the aftermath.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
All right, what'd you think?
Good. We talked through it a lot of it, but I was still glued to it though. I thought it was. I didn't. It was a long match in a good way, but it wasn't like a lot of crazy cruiserweight type stuff. There was more. Just a lot of like
submissions,
some rest holds, or not rest holds, but like submission holds, like just a lot of different type stuff that was really good. That they don't need the high flyer. I think that proves just kind of how good that those guys are. Absolutely. All right. So what do we got here? What happened in the aftermath? So, Guerrero at this point. So, yes, as we saw, Guerrero winning the belt from Chris Jericho on this one for the cruiserweight title. You had Guerrero dropping the belt actually to Rey Mysterio Jr. at Halloween Havoc. That was, of course, the title versus mass match, which we all know all well. He actually won the belt back from Mysterio just about a week and a half later, and then defended it against Mysterio at World War III. And kind of doing that, you had Jericho, World War III at that one. He was in the Battle Royal, but did not win. He ended up to his episode of Thunder. Actually, it said Jericho defeated Eddie Guerrero to earn a title shot against Rey Mysterio. It sold out. Jericho won the match by forcing Mysterio to submit to the Lion Tamer. And then it's a Jericho turned heel after that by assaulting Rey Mysterio's knee with a toolbox. In reality, Mysterio was hurt. And so, and kind of doing that. So, just more cruiserweight stuff. That's really kind of what it boiled down to. So 1997, you had Jericho was 26, Eddie Guerrero was number 24 on the PWI. The torch on this one, they gave it 4.25 stars, real high on this one.
Wow.
Just kind of get, just really good stuff here. Just kind of the standard write-up. It was the best match of the night, according to the Observer newsletter, getting 3.75 stars on this one. Let's see here. Yeah, just kind of, again, normal type write-up stuff. The two traded near falls back and forth. Jericho used a double bomb and then put Guerrero on the top for a suplex. Guerrero reversed the move on the way down and crashed on Jericho, then scored a clean pinfall with the frog splash. So 4.25, 3.75. What are you going to rate this opening card match there, Tom?
I got it a 7. I mean, it was a very, very good wrestling match and, decent story, and I got no problem with it. I thought it was, on the upper half of these cruiserweight matches from the ones we watched so far. What about you?
Yeah, I was going to give it a 7.5. I think it was perfectly good. I think if you want to watch a match between these guys, this is a good choice. It was just, showed a style that we're not necessarily, not that high flying, but there was some of that. It was, they did their kind of classic stuff, and I think it was all really good. And so if you need one to watch, this is one to kind of go back and check out, but nothing crazy, but it was just a good display of what these two guys are capable of. So I enjoyed it. Absolutely.
Cool.
So with that, kind of we'll send them home happy again, as always, reminding everyone, manscaped.com, using that promo code PAYOFF, PAYOFF, 20% off, free shipping, everything in the store, everything you put in your cart, doesn't matter what it is, you're getting that promo code discount using manscaped.com and our promo code PAYOFF. So 20% off free shipping. Don't forget that. So with that, where are we going next week? Ooh, 2011, the Night of Champions, wrestler we have not covered yet. After, what are we on here? 260 plus episodes. We're finally going to talk Mark Henry. Look at that. Mark Henry versus Randy Orton.
I'm excited to cover it.
Get your best salmon jacket ready. Here we go.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Cool. Let's send
All
them
right.
on.
Appreciate everyone listening. We'll see you next week on an all-new episode of The Pack.